thought you might have been Sonny Peters. Come on up, mate.
No, just me. Thank you.
Coastguard, Eastern Region. So welcome. And we have 10 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Yep, thanks very much.
It's up to you how you use it.
Yep, no worries.
Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sonny Peters. I am the Coastguard Eastern Region CEO. I'm here this afternoon just to have a quick chat. I'm privileged to have Dick Hilton with me, the president of the local unit. So here we go. Today I'm going to... Coastguard Eastern Region is a unit support office located at the Mountain Tauranga. Our aim is to provide services to the units within our region and to assist our volunteers to go about their business of saving lives at sea. There are 15 units in the region located between Whitianga, Hawke's Bay, Turangi, Taupo and Rotorua. I guess historically at times we've been labelled a little bit more like Dad's Army. But ongoing changes in the rescue environment and legislation have required the Coastguard to evolve in order to maintain a high level of service to our community and the demands on our volunteers. As the terrain has changed, we have invested heavily in training, tools and team skills. So this investment has been paying off for us, and now perhaps we are ready to offer something more than just assistance to boaties on the water. As part of our SAR response plan, we have had to develop our incident management capabilities. This is in keeping with the SIM structure that is used by most government departments, local governments and other SAR partners. As a result, we have a capacity of SIMS-trained IMT support people that could assist in civil defence emergency management and major events planning management that require solid planning teams with common skills and current experience. This is something that we can see we can offer our communities at regional and district council levels in order to develop partnerships as opposed to having a funder-beneficiary relationship only. How will we develop this? By training on a common platform, regular exercises, providing team rotations in events within the IMT or ICP management team on the longer tasks. Our local unit have had relationships around oil spill responses on water and water pollution control, offshore water quality scientific research, harbour master inspections, removal of navigation hazards, storage and quick response pollution control, crews for regional marine regulation safety and training facilities for the Hawke's Bay District Regional Council. So in summary, sir, our point is to seek partnership in offering something tangible in return and not just simply asking for funds. Any questions?
Thank you. Questions? Yes, Neil.
Thank you. My question is, in the first instance, have you approached the Port of Napier for any contribution, or are they involved in funding and supporting Coastguard in any way?
Yes, we have a 10-year contract with the Port of Napier, which allows us or them to use the Coastguard vessel in times that the pilot vessel isn't used or is under servicing. And in fact, the Port of Napier have our vessel at the moment because the pilot vessel is unavailable.
Is there, sorry, Mr. Chair, is there any other opportunity to use your vessel, for example, in coastal marine scientific research opportunities?
Yes, with the Regional Council, we've had a charter agreement for our vessel. And when I say our vessel, it's really a regional vessel that has been given to Coastguard through the community funding and that. So we see nothing wrong with sharing our resources and perhaps just sharing the OPEX that comes with that. So previously we've had regional staff going out doing scientific monitoring of outflows, taking water sampling. We've been involved with oil response, oil pollution response, both in the inner harbour and in the city of, in the Port of Napier. And with the harbour master looking at navigational aids and the harbour master calling us out on occasion to remove navigational hazards and stuff like that. So yes, it has been an ongoing contribution and partnership.
Any other questions? Otherwise, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you got your point across quite concisely, and well done.
Excellent. Thanks very
And
much.
thanks for the work that you do too, you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Perry Spiller? Welcome, Perry.
Thank you.
So you'll probably heard my previous things. You have 5 minutes. I know it's a short time, but hopefully you can get your point across. And you need to contain questions with that if you want questions, but otherwise use the whole time yourself.
Thank you. No, my assessment is it'll take a lot less than 5 minutes, depending on how many questions you may have.
Okay.
The tenor of the Facing Our Future document is that there's an environmental crisis in Hawke's Bay. Either there is one now or one is imminent. Now, my perspective is that, and it's a question more than a statement, are environmental pressures a direct result of human activities? I think they are, but just what is the crisis? And more importantly, how did the crisis actually occur? And who let it get to the point of being a crisis? As I see it, the only reason there can be a crisis is because this council has either not seen what was coming or did see and elected not to do what was necessary to prevent the crisis from occurring. Once upon a time, the council's slogan was safeguarding our environment, a phrase that's no longer seen on the front or home page of the council's website. Why and when did the council abandon that ethic? The council acknowledges that environmental pressures are a direct result of human activities. I presume that's a presumption on my part from reading the documents. And yet it spends hundreds of thousands of dollars of ratepayers' money to bring more human tourist pressure on the environment that it is supposed to be safeguarding. The most galling aspect of this, to me, is that you're asking all ratepayers to pay for the sins of a few, whoever it is that's causing the crisis, whether it's a tourism operator or a farmer or some other polluter. And my question is that why are the profits of pollution being kept by the polluters and the cost of remediation being borne by ratepayers throughout the district? That's it.
Thank you. I think your last comment gets a lot of sympathy around this table, but I will ask for questions.
Well,
Yes,
you
we have
might say that, Perry, and it might well be true, but working through what's the consequences if we simply say, you know, it's all too hard, we're not going to do it, we're not going to actually remediate it because the person who's benefiting from it is not going to pay. We're just going to stand back and do nothing.
No?
I'll just give you the other example here. It was frustrating, but the chair makes the point that the trees are all chopped down years and years ago by people who are no longer here. There's no one at fault here. So we have to do something. So should we say, be pure and say, well, those who made the problem have to fix it? If we do that, nothing will happen.
I think you're reflecting too far back, Rick, candidly. Well, I would like to know how this crisis occurred in the last 5 or 10 years, not what happened when people cut trees down 150 years ago. I bought my place in Fernhill in 1978 and I have planted over 10,000 trees on that property since then. That's just my personal ethic. And I don't think trees is the sole issue. I can't understand, in fact it's a point my wife made, is that if the waterways are so bad, why are you granting resource consents for people to bottle thousands and thousands of litres and take it overseas?
It's not in the river.
River water percolates to the aquifers.
Oh, yeah, but the water bottling plant is now at Toto.
Do we have any other questions? If we don't, thank you very much, Perry. We appreciate that. And I just want to thank you for planting 10,000 trees. Well done. Thanks very much.
Also want to say, Perry, great to see you've still got the same fire.
Oh,
It runs in the family, right?
Oh, yeah, I get that. Undimmed is all of a sudden.
he's not a West Coaster, is he?
No, I know Perry's like this all the time. It's full steam ahead.
Thank you, Perry. Denis Bell? Thank you, Hi, Denis. So, Denis, sadly, you only have 5 minutes, but you use it to the best of your advantage.
What'd you say?
You only have 5 minutes, so
Yeah,
use
fair
it
enough.
well.
Yeah, my name's Denis Bell. I'm a farmer in Central Hawke's Bay and Northern Hawke's Bay. My submission is a rural ratepayer with a rate increase of 23% if this proposed plan goes ahead. I feel that the council has a majority but not a unanimous support of all councillors to justify such a huge rate increase, particularly as our farming incomes fluctuate from year to year. In particular, I oppose the creation of a future farming fund. My strong view is this is outside the scope and business of the HBRC. As a sheep and beef farmer, I pay significant amount of levies to Beef and Lamb New Zealand. The Hawke's Bay region is represented by Mark Harris, among others. The organisation is already doing work into areas that the Future Farming Fund proposes to cover. Beef and Lamb New Zealand is well placed with industry experts that can disseminate information to farmers in all regions of the country. What the council proposes with the fund merely replicates this work at a lower level, with the very real risk of relying on so-called experts who are not up to the task. I have real concerns as to what the makeup of this group would be and what it would achieve, all at the expense of the rural ratepayer. The council's tactic to scaremonger people by saying we have to do things now before it is too late is misleading and untrue. Farmers have already invested significantly in repairing and planting and fencing of waterways. For example, I have fenced off at my own expense frontages of the Esk and Waipawa River, fully excluding sheep and cattle. I know for a fact that I'm not the only farmer in this region to have done this. Farmers are already undertaking this work, and we don't need the HRBC to rate us. Then carry out this work. The results of this work will not be seen overnight, but will take years to be seen. Progress, however, is being made. In the long-term plan, budgeting should be done on a minimum rate rise. I've always carried out any necessary improvements to my farm business within the income available. This, I feel, is good business practice. The council need to prioritise issues and projects and work within the money available. I feel that there are certain members of this council who believe their wish list should be granted all at once. Where is the accountability and learning to operate in a financially prudent manner? Members of the council need to remember this is not their money to spend as they wish, rather it is the ratepayers. The port is a strategic asset to Hawke's Bay. This asset belongs to all of Hawke's Bay and not just the HBRC, who I have real concerns will sell this asset down to fund their pet projects. The asset needs to remain as it is to ensure all the region's producers and ratepayers have a fair and equitable access to export their products to market. Thank you.
Thank you, Denis. Questions?
Go on then.
Really?
Okay.
Thank you, Denis. You mentioned that you feel there are certain members of the council who believe that there is a wish list that should be granted all at once where there is accountability and learning to operate in a financially prudent manner. I can't help myself. Certain members of the council, who are you pointing the finger at?
Sorry,
Who are you pointing the finger at?
well, only what I read in the paper.
Which means what? I mean, you've basically accused some of us of not being financially prudent. So
I'm just saying that is good business practice.
Anyway, any other questions? Thanks, Dennis, and I appreciate the passion of your address and your...
Thank you.
Oh, you got a question?
Yeah,
You didn't have your hand up high enough. You need to...
no, I had my hand up, but you were addressing Dennis, so that's all. Dennis, are you aware that there are 7 million cubic metres of silt that are washing in out of the rivers in Hawke's Bay into the Hawke Bay each year?
Oh, yeah, well, that's ever since there's been development of New Zealand as a farming economy, isn't it?
I don't know if you attended the any of the public days that we had, you know, to talk about the plan, but during the course of those presentations, information was put up. There's 277,000 hectares of highly erodible land in the hill country. Were you aware of that?
Yes, yeah, I am.
We're aware. And are you aware that at the current level of pole planting we're doing, it will take nearly 300 years to plant that erodible land? Were you aware of that?
No. I do know from my own experience that I farm on erodible country.
Right.
And we had that massive rainfall a few years ago. It is now starting to grass over, even despite despite droughts. In 1937, my father experienced the same thing, took photos of that country, and it did grass over.
Anyway, we are over our allocated time. Thank you, Peter, for the questions. And thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
For coming along.
Thank you for...
James Hunter. Welcome, James. So sadly, you only have 5 minutes, mate, so use it best you can. Don't worry, we have a little dinger here, a little ding.
Thank you.
So just tell us when you're ready to go.
Okay, well, let's hook into it. So, Mr. Chair, councillors and staff, just a quick bit of background. Off farm, I have a BCom from Lincoln. I've worked for the rural, just bring this forward, worked for the Rural Bank. I was even a vet on a live cattle shipment to Venezuela. I was a Central Hawke's Bay District Councillor for 12 years, still the youngest when I retired.
Is that right?
I was elected for the maximum 3 terms of the QE2 National Trust. I had 2 years on the Balanced Farm Environment Award. I set up the Huatoki Land Care Group. I've been a farm forestry judge for the last 7 years. A little bit to show you that I have some understanding of New Zealand agriculture. On farm, I was a Hawke's Bay farm forester, and I will say I wasn't one of the judges. I didn't judge myself. Hawke competition, I've been in there. I've won the Lean Meat Supplier of the Year numerous times. I've been the New Zealand Sheep Supplier of the Year. I was the East Coast Supreme Winner for the Balanced Farm Environment Awards, and more particularly involved in a discussion group since 1989, 3 of whom would be in the top 1% of New Zealand farmers. That's just to show that I think I have some understanding of farming. So my first point was rates. You're proposing to increase them by 19%. For me, it's some 30-odd%. I find it disingenuous that you said that the reason for this was that you had submissions, 2,500 submissions out of 70,000 ratepayers is not a big amount, but I would point out that 87% of those who submitted said they wouldn't accept more than $1 a week increase. You have clearly not taken that on board because your average of increase is beyond that. Just a little bit on the sideline, and it's still pushing me close, but you've got your biodiversity launch today. There's a Waikato report that I would recommend you read. You may have read it, but based on your 900 sites that you've identified in Hawke's Bay, you're expecting farmer contributions of around $220 million. So, Mike, there's there's a limit to how much you can keep extracting from the rural industry. So I picked out 2 points in the costings. The first was your additional funds for the Maori Consultative Group, whatever that might be. I'd point out that with QE2 we were on about $250 a day. With balance it was mileage only. I would suggest that your payments to that group be based on attendance, not on a set amount, and I understand there may even be an independent recommended or independently recommended rate which you appear to have ignored. Great, if you're in a position to fund it. In this case, it's part of a significant increase, and I would suggest, my recommendation is that if you want to do that, put it out as a uniform annual charge so that everyone knows what they're paying, everyone pays their fair share. Then the Future Farming Fund, I'm just not sure why you're going there. Again, 19% increase, and you can look to help farmers with what appears to be a blank sheet. I cannot see anywhere what it is you're going to do to help farmers. What will it be achieved? Which top farmers are going to be involved? So I would put it another way, that if you were looking to add to our rate increases this year to support this, you'd want to have some farmers who believed in what you were going to achieve. So just a bit of a chat around ex-farmers of the year, I haven't found anyone who would be prepared to support it. So if you were looking to go ahead with this, you would want to show the public where the support was. Tom, you, or Councillor Belford, you mentioned after the Waipawa meeting, Mike Peterson, Bruce Wills and Steve Wynne-Harris were in support. I spoke to them, none of them can see where that support came from. So you as a council, it might be high ideals, I'm not sure what it is. You'd want to show that you had support, and you'd want to show that it was your core business. And on that part there, I do not believe it is council's core business. There are enough people out there trying to help farmers. I go back to my background, I have a bit of an understanding of what was there. Thank you. And concern for the environment. Look, we're in this together, and I think there's a long way to go. We're doing fantastic work, and I just put things in perspective that what would the country be if we said we're the same population as the UK with another 30 Aucklands or another 850 Napiers? What would your waterways be? So don't just hound the farmers. Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you, James. I think you got your point across. Well, we don't have any time for any questions, though.
Thank you.
You kept your time very well. Made your point strong. Thank you very much. So, Murray Cormac? Cammock, sorry.
All right.
Welcome, Murray, and you know the rules. We've been
Problems.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm speaking in support of the future farming initiatives. Regarding rates, my rates actually go up 35%, but these should be put in context with what has been done in the past and what needs to be done in the future. I don't see it as a cost, but rather an investment into the future. The Council has a massive task ahead of it to implement the policies of central government along with the public's increasing expectations of our environment. But this must be done with context to the viability of our farming and support industries. Question: why should the Regional Council support our future farming initiatives? It is not enough to just use a big stick to induce change so that regulatory bodies can tick their requested boxes. Instead, we also need to find the carrots that result in a win-win situation for both the farming sector and the environment. And for us, this needs to be done in the context of Hawke's Bay's unique characteristics and be driven by Hawke's Bay farmers. If we accept that some of our farming practices are responsible for some of our environmental problems, then we also need to accept that future farming practices need to be part of the solution. Farmers do not want to be told how to farm. but instead would readily adopt modified and new elements to their farm systems if they could see in them definite advantages for themselves. I believe one of the major benefits of a future farming initiative would be to identify these win-win opportunities, resulting in farmers leading rather than being pushed. This would be a natural extension of farm environmental plans and would demonstrate Council's role as not only a regulator, but as a facilitator of change for everyone's benefit. Unfortunately, the farming industry and the Regional Council do not have enough answers and solutions to address the economic and environmental issues that we face. And sometimes it seems like people are just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. Question. So where are these solutions going to come from? Unfortunately, much of the so-called science of farming has been hijacked by contestable funding and corporate sales objectives. We are stifled by an emphasis on component and production thinking instead of a whole farm, whole ecosystems approach, and suffer from people working in silos, putting band-aids on symptoms without addressing the real problems. This has resulted in us not considering all available options. There is, however, a wealth of knowledge and experience locally, nationally and internationally that can help us develop the new systems that we need to address the issues of environmental enhancement, climate change and prosperity. In many cases, the wheel has already been invented. We just need to find the ones that fit our particular situations. We need to open our eyes and minds and canvass all knowledge and possibilities that are out there and keep asking the question, why? We need to ask the right questions, otherwise we do not see the real problems and answers. For example, don't ask how much rain we have had. Instead, ask the questions, how much of the rain that fell did I capture in my soils, and how much of it will I be able to hold in excess? There is a new generation of farmers coming through that are open to change and keen to try new ideas. We can no longer wait for the traditional research and communication pathways. The term future farming brings visions of smart and precision technology. For instance, fertiliser and water application, drones, infrared and electromagnetic analysis of our soils and crops, etc., etc. But it is no good putting smart technology on what are fundamentally dumb and inappropriate systems. We need to get the basics right first, and we need to start fixing problems rather than treating symptoms. Our soils, climate and topography are our most influencing natural factors, but often our farm systems are not particularly well matched to these. We have lost the sponge effect from our soils and landscapes. We no longer shelter ourselves from nature's forces of wind, rain and sun. We have very little diversity. I am supporting this initiative because I believe we need to change our mindset and embrace a different perspective, and that many of our solutions will come from a regenerative approach by rebuilding our soils and landscapes which have been so greatly modified that they no longer function properly. The problem we have is a little bit like my friend who is looking for love, but is looking in all the wrong places. I say to him, mate, you've got to get off Tinder with its instant gratification and superficial ways and start to understand how real relationships work and return long-term benefits for all.
Thank you, Murray. Have you got much left? Or
No, a little bit. A change down this path will give us more resilient farm systems, produce more nutrient-dense foods with better shelf life, health and consumer appeal. Isn't this exactly what we need if we are to target these high-end markets which are very much influenced by quality, image and ethical production? I believe the Council, the environment, our people and our economy would benefit greatly from this more balanced approach. And lastly, I'd like to congratulate the Council for having the vision to consider this initiative.
Thank you very much, Murray. Well, There was no time for questions, I'm afraid. You took all the time, but you
it's nice to
did
see
it.
a farmer with an open mind, and you're a breath of fresh air. Thanks for coming.
Central Hawke's Bay farmer.
You didn't tell us about him.
Are you a farmer?
Yes.
Yes, see, there we go. Questions answered.
Yeah, thank you very much.
A whole long list of my experience.
I don't know about that reference to Tinder, but nevertheless, you've got Mr.
Well, Rick, it's a rural thing.
It's a rural
I didn't
Tinder.
understand, but Mike Moore, suddenly got a flush red face.
Okay, thank you. So, Alex and Monique, you've walked through the door and you're on straight away. We've been waiting all day for you to
Yes,
come.
this is the highlight of the afternoon.
Gentlemen,
Now,
lovely to see you.
everyone's been having 5 minutes, but we're giving you 10.
Oh, no.
Yes, we
Special
are.
consideration.
And
Well, you're
we
hoping
understand
for
you
20.
only gave us 5.
Yes.
But just to show that we have no hard feelings,
Oh, lovely. No, I'm pretty sure
got
you
10.
got 10.
So you just tell us when to go and we'll press the button.
I actually don't want to speak too much, but I want to pick up a couple of points. Thank you very much for having us here this afternoon. I feel that we're probably on the downhill slide, are we, to the end of the day? And really important for us to be here. We presented a fairly comprehensive submission on behalf of Central Hawke's Bay District Council covering a number of issues. And there's probably just a couple that I want to pick up on. I'm not going to speak about tourism. I'm going to participate in the forum about tourism tomorrow. But a couple of things we want to pick up on. So there's a couple of points that I've made in there about the Future Farming Fund, about the carrots in the plan, and also about the resilience and water security in Central Hawke's Bay. And I suppose my comment is that Central Hawke's Bay is in a place where water security is still and will continue to be a really important topic, and how that coincides with land use. And so we are supportive of a lot of these initiatives that Regional Council have got on the table. But there is a lot of bridge mending and collaboration and partnership that we need with some vision and leadership to move this forward. We're still looking for what is the solution of how we collectively move forward with Plan Change 6, without the construct of Ruataniwha happening at the same time. We're still looking for leadership, guidance, information of how we pull that all together, because water security and the impact that has in our community is of crucial importance on so many levels. So that is the undertone behind a lot of our comments, and I suppose I will open for some questions, I suppose, if that's your will, Mr. Chair.
Certainly fine. Monique, do you wish to use the silent majority here?
Happy to answer questions.
Okay. So, Fenton to kick off with.
Thank you, Chair.
And then we'll come-
Just a question around civil defence. How has CHB demonstrated accurately that you are going to reduce your contribution to, or your, if you like, demand on that rate to your community, openly and transparently, as we step up our rates by 5% to pick up that challenge? So I'm not seeing it. I haven't read everything that you guys are here, and you're going to explain to me succinctly how that works, but the other councils, it's a bit hazy.
So we had 5 specific items in our consultation document, and one of them was particularly about the regional civil defence rate. So we were very clear about the position of collectively moving forward and supporting the regional council as the leaders and the connectors in this. So we had some good conversations around our community about this, and people wanting to understand it and what that means for delivery of civil defence in Central Hawke's Bay, but also what it means to be collecting the rate regionally. And we got a lot of support for that in Central Hawke's Bay.
You didn't quite answer Fenton's question, but we'll move on anyway. Tom.
As you walked in, you might have heard one or two of the presentations immediately preceding you, both by constituents of yours from Central Hawke's Bay, one passionately opposed to the Future Farming Fund, and one passionately in support. And so I'm interested to know how you arrived at the position you have, which I find quite encouraging. Council supports the establishment of the Future Farming Fund on the basis that it invests in innovation and progress in the primary sector. And you go on to argue, or to add that you'd like to see that done in a collaborative manner with sector groups and so forth, which is exactly the intent of the proposal. Are you comfortable with your position as stated in here?
Well, I sit at a democratic table like you guys do, so that we had this conversation as a table. It was a debate that had definitely had two sides, but what we're presenting to you is a majority view. And I suppose the support for us, the support for it, is the strategic intent in investing in the future of innovation in the farming sector. We're absolutely in support of. Some of the negative position is more about that questioning of how that's going to be delivered, the integrity of that, and whether it's going to honour work that's already happening. So strategically, at a high level, we understand and support where you're going, although it has been questioned to the underlying parts of it.
Thank you. Neil.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and again, compliment and congratulate a forward-thinking Council for supporting the establishment of the Future Farming Fund. In coming to a conclusion by your Council, was there an appreciation that current farming practices in not only the region but in your district are resulting in millions upon millions of soils being flushed into the Hawke Bay on an annual basis? Is there an appreciation across your district that those farming practices need to change, and your community is willing to embrace innovation and change practices to mitigate this disaster?
Actually, I resent that question because I think it is over-inflammatory and oversimplifies the issue of a collective issue around water. It is not just about farmers, it is about a whole lot of things. And actually, farmers across this region are speaking with their actions and with their checkbooks, to be quite honest, on the things that they are doing to address and mitigate some of the challenges that we have. But this is generations of change that are not going to change and not going to reverse in a short number of years.
Paul?
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate your comments around and understand your comments around Plan Change 6 and the challenges that it presents for your community. You've mentioned in your submission that you're concerned about the lack of action, and in some respects I kind of acknowledge that and agree with that. When would you, what sort of time frame would you like us to come up with something definite? Is there any, have you got any preferred, apart from yesterday, have you got anything in mind where you'd like to see some sort of definite plan on how to deal with the challenges we have with Plan Change 6?
Well, I think the answer is probably yesterday, because we're coming into this summer, we're going to be dealing with low flow mechanisms which are going to have an average impact on an average year of decreasing cash, on-hand cash for a farm by 35%. So actually yesterday probably, without being flippant, probably should be the answer.
Now I have to go. I'll have to go to Mike because he's going to say I'm picking on him. So.
Yeah, so I can't make statements, I have to ask you a question. So do you realise how many of your ratepayers really appreciate the new broom that's come into the council and the great work that you're doing? And we have a Māori saying, ka puta ruha, ka hau te rangatahi, which means the old net is cast aside and the new net goes a-fishing. So thank you very much.
Take as a statement.
Well, I think the answer to that question is, Mr. Mohi, is that we held our LTP hearings a couple of weeks ago now, and you would have been more than welcome to come and make those statements then.
Alan.
Hi, Alex. Now, what happened to this work that was going to be undertaken, I believe funded by the council, into how to survive Plan Change 6 without Ruatanapa?
My understanding is there has been some progress on those conversations, but there's still no answers or clear direction coming from it yet.
There is a consultant on the job, though, is there?
Yes, Aqualinka working presently for a farmer collective that we're funding.
Are there any other questions?
Is there a time frame?
I
couldn't, it's the next few months, but I couldn't give you a definitive.
Alex, do you want to wind up? There seems to be no more questions, and you've got another
you-
minute. We don't
I've
want
got
to
a
waste a
minute.
second.
Wow. Oh, well, thank you very much for your time. And these are really big issues that we really have to be looking at collectively, and it concerns me that we have rifts and divisions, because we need to move this forward together, and we need to understand each other's perspectives so that we can move forward, and I'm really keen to be doing that. So thank you for listening to our perspective, and
thank you for
congratulations on
coming.
your plan.
Thank you too, Monique. Thank you very much. Okay, Ian Kens.
Well done, Alex.
Not here. Richard. Can't. Yes. Welcome, Richard. So you'll be aware, Richard, today you have 5 minutes to get your view across. If you want to have questions, you can speak a bit less, but
Okay, thank
I
you
advise you to take the 5.
very much. Hello, my name's Richard Karn, and I'm from West Shore. They loaded a PowerPoint thingy for me, and I've decided I'll use it. I was going to leave it for the questions, but I think it's probably better to just use it regardless.
Okay.
And, it might answer a few questions rather than create them. Thanks very much.
Pages are different, that's the problem.
Great. Okay, this submission is in relation to the Coastal Hazard Strategy 2120. In the report of the Northern and Southern Seal Assessment Panel dated the 14th of February 2018, a recommendation is made on page 14 of this report to place sand renourishment offshore at West Shore Beach using marine plant and allowing the sand to naturally migrate northwards and towards the beach, thereby raising foreshore levels. In order to achieve this goal, there will need to be a coastal permit obtained to uplift sand from Hawke Bay, close to West Shore, and deposit the sand in the near shore area in front of West Shore Beach. A logical local body to obtain and utilise this consent is the Hawke's Bay Regional Council. Therefore, I request that the HBRC include in the long-term plan budget for coastal hazard work a sum for the preparation of the necessary documents to obtain a coastal permit for the uplift and disposal of sand in Hawke Bay, the purpose of providing sand in the nearshore zone off West Shore. In October last year, the port deposited for the first time ever a considerable volume of dredged sand close to the West Shore Surf Club. This sand continues to have a beneficial effect on the nearshore region of the beach in this vicinity. I'd like to now show you some photos and beach profile measurements of these beneficial effects. I'm probably better going over here. This is a photo taken in September last year before the dredging started to be deposited off the beach. That pipe, that outfall pipe that you can see there, is effectively in front of where the surf club is.
What's coming out of the pipe?
Stormwater. Stormwater. No, not sewage.
Could be sewage. Could be.
It's supposed to be stormwater.
I suppose I just...
This would be just
the left click will do. So is left click going to do it, is it? Okay, so then in October 2017, the dredge called the Albatross came in. As you can see, it came in quite close to shore. And that's the first time we've ever seen a dredge that close to shore. And they spent a month bringing dredge spoil in. Not all of it came close to West Shore, but a good quantity of it came close. Within a few weeks, the beach was starting to change its shape, and you can see there a bulge in the sand line there, In the middle of the photo there, you can see how the beach has changed its shape, and that's the result of the sand coming ashore. Now, there's a sequence of photos here, about 5-6 photos, taken in March, and what it shows you is the way the waves are bending, changing their normal planar curvature. They're actually going along and they're taking a kink, and they're taking a kink because of the shallower water in front of the surf club, which slows those waves down, so they stay behind and the rest of the waves come forward. You can see it there. And then you can sort of see the way the wave has changed, and the run-in is a lot less. Now you can start to see the next wave starting to come in further out to sea. You can see how that one is bent as well.
Bending it like Beckham.
Yep. And that's because of the shallower water, and the water's shallower there because the sand is coming ashore. That sand was deposited between 300 and 500 metres from the beach, and it's slowly coming to shore. This is a sort of perspective aerial shot of the bathymetric survey that was done in January as part of the port's consent. They have to do this bathymetric survey every 5 years, and fortunately the one in January coincided with a dredging campaign, which is an unusual thing for us to have happen, but it happened, and it's great because it then gives us really good data as to what happened after the dredging campaign. And these are lines of equal depth from the water surface, and you can see where all these circles are is where the mounds of sand are. The red circle is the surf club. Now this shot here, those yellow squares are where the dredge deposited the material. So you can see all those areas of shallow water are where the sand was deposited. And that was about, that's 3 months after it was done. There's a possibility that another bathymetric survey is going to get done in the next month or two, just to see if that pattern has changed or whether those mounds are still there. These are the cross sections taken from the beach on the corner of the surf club. There's a cross section that is a standard cross section that the regional council takes a profile from annually, and as part of this dredging program, the cross sections have been taken monthly as well, and I've just shown you here a sample of the measurements. The scales are expanded in the vertical direction, so it looks, it's not a nice representation of what the coast looks like because it's been magnified in this direction relative to that direction. Anyway, up where the 13 is, that's the corner of the surf club building. Then it goes along, and then the hump is the big bank, the shingle bank that's made each year. The green line is 2016. The red line is August 2017, which is a couple of months before the dredging was deposited. The yellow line is January 2018, which was the same time period as when the previous slides were. So you can see there the difference in height, and especially it's out where the water is. The horizontal line that's 9 metres is low tide. That's the lowest low tide you'll get. So where the line flattens off is all under the water. You don't actually see that, but that's what's causing the waves to break earlier, further out. And then you can see the last one is the April 2018, and you can see it's still coming up. The next measurements are being done, I think, in about a week's time. So there'll be another line on the graph in a week's time.
Richard, you're over your time, but have you got much to do?
That's it, finished.
That's it. Okay, thank you very much. We won't take questions because you're quite a lot over your time, and it's such an interesting, I could see everyone was interested.
Okay.
But you know, you've passionately stayed there on this kaupapa for many years, and we do appreciate that, you know, the people like you out there in the community who are just hanging on to these projects. So well done. Don't give in. Don't give in on us. Don't give up on us, and don't give in.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, that is the end of our session today, because Nessie's did turn up, Ian Karn's didn't turn up. So that is the end. We are done. And did on time.
Well done, Chair.
No, 5 minutes early.
Congratulations. Do it again tomorrow.
Don't often get congratulated by Councillor Barker.
What is the plan for tomorrow? What
we've got a,
I keep hearing of this soiree of some sort. What's happening tomorrow?
Soiree. Tourism thing. What's that about?
She's still putting the list together, Chair.
Yeah.
Some still haven't confirmed.
So are we going through a list of individual submitters, or are we
Yeah,
having
but-
some kind of a group?
So from, essentially from 10 till 12, we've set aside 2 hours for tourism, and we've asked Annie to, and it won't be Annie because she's away, it's going to be George, to present up front, and to the extent they're able to have organised all of these supporters into a continuous